All right, our next problem we're going to look at together is number 7 right here. We're going to look at number 7. Now this one, notice that you have to fill out all the statements and the reasons. Isn't that fun? You get to do the whole proof. All right, so let's look really quickly at what they've given us. We can go ahead and at least copy those givens down right there. So they've given us that this AB, segment AB right here, is congruent to segment CD. Again, I'm going to write that as a given, but even more important, I'm going to draw it on my nice, lovely image over here. So AB right here is congruent to CD. So those are congruent there. Now, the next thing that they told us is that AB is also parallel to CD. Now, those are different. Remember, we learned last example that parallel doesn't mean that they're congruent. In this case, however, they're both parallel and congruent. Now remember, parallel actually is going to tell us about angles. So before we go any farther than that, let's look at the angles right here. So if we knew that these two lines, we're going to draw this one farther down here. If those two lines are parallel, let's look at this as our transversal, because this transversal goes into both triangles right there. Then we can say, look at what we could say right here. This angle right here, we'll go ahead and draw that, and this angle are congruent. Those are corresponding angles. Remember, so parallel lines mean that corresponding angles are congruent. So let's go ahead and mark that. And I'm going to, sorry again, we're going to take out those two lines again so we can see what they're, what the labels are of the triangles. So we're going to look right here, and we're going to say the angle, this one we're going to call ABD, angle ABD is congruent to angle, and then in this triangle, it's going to be CDE, CDE. Okay, so those angles are congruent. Now, why was that again? What kind of angles are those? Those were our corresponding angles. So the corresponding angles theorem or postulate, it's okay, just go ahead and write corresponding angles. Says that if lines are parallel, then their corresponding angles are congruent. All right, last thing that we're going to go ahead and look at is this last given. Okay, so they've told me that D is the midpoint of the segment BE. Okay, so when you look at BE, here's BE right there. D is the midpoint. Now, what does midpoint mean? Sorry, this was a given as well. Well, midpoint just means that it breaks that segment into two congruent parts right there. Okay, so that's really, that midpoint really tells us that the segment between B and D is congruent to the segment between D and E. And again, why is that? Well, it's what a midpoint means. It's our definition of a midpoint right here. Very good. Now, look what we have here. We've got this side we're saying is congruent. We've got an angle that's congruent, and we've got another side that's congruent. So can we go ahead and jump now to say that ABD, triangle ABD, BD is congruent to triangle CDE? Yes, we can. And the reason is because of our side angle side postulate. And you're done with that one.